Oh my gosh, it says we're live, Mike.
Okay, I'm gonna believe that.
The computer says it's true, so it must be true.
Exactly.
Hey, can you smell that smell?
Everything smells like the inside of a mask to me. What are you talking about?
Well, in my house, it smells like Hanukkah.
Oh, does it really?
Tonight's the first night of Hanukkah, and my dad sent me a recipe. So I always make latkes, which are potato pancakes.
Mm-hmm.
And you lived in LA, you know about Hanukkah.
Oh yeah.
In Seattle, not so many Jews. So so the way traditionally you make latkes is, you get the potatoes and you grate them raw and put onions together with egg. So my dad sent me a recipe. He's like, hey, this is a lot less messy. I'm going to try this year. You should too. And so what you do is you actually bake the potatoes. So right now, and you bake them and then you grate them. You don't bake them fully, obviously, because then you could grate them. So I'm trying that this year. So if people want the recipe or want to know how it is, let me know.
I would like it.
Okay, fine. I will send it to you. I will send it to you. This is not yet where we talk about information security.
No, but we can talk about potatoes because, as you know, I grow a bunch of potatoes every year.
Right. Oh, I could use your potatoes.
No, I'm not giving my potatoes up.
Well, that's kind of a bummer, but fine.
Well, catch me in July.
All right. So strange thing here. For whatever reason, your posts aren't showing for me, so I don't actually know if we're streaming, but I think we are. So I'm just going to keep going here. Okay. Oh, wait. Now it says we are. That's great. This is week number, would you say, 49 of 2020?
48, 49, something like that, yeah.
It's March 200 and something, right?
Exactly.
But, on the good news front, I heard you taught a class.
Well, I wouldn't say I taught a class. I spoke to a class at UW. The last real teaching thing I did was at the University of New South Wales in Australia. And that was about how to use derivative threshold analysis of hyperspectral reflectance data to identify components in fresh water through remote sensing. And we probably don't want to talk about this.
No. We should go back to, we should go back to potato latkes. No, to continue.
Okay. All right. But in the prep for the presentation, I grabbed some fresh data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And so not surprising, Cyber Analyst is the 10th fastest growing occupation at 30% growth rate with a median salary of, I think, $99,000. So that in and of itself, I don't think is that interesting. More interesting, 6 of the top 10 highest growth occupations are in the health sector. And number 1 is Wind Turbine Service Technician at 60% growth rate with a median salary of $52K. So both of those last two are more interesting, one for a bad reason and one for a good reason, in my opinion.
I mean, it's interesting all the way around. One of the things you've worked on for a long time is the Pisces Project. And, just to remind everybody, Mike came up with the idea when he was the CISO of the city of Seattle. It's free monitoring for small local governments. Not that the city of Seattle is a small local government. He created it for other people. But what they do is they use university students as actual analysts with curriculum developed by Western Washington University, which is in Bellingham, Washington. And it's really cool, right?
Yeah, that's right. And right now there are 108 students at 5 schools, including Alabama A&M, being trained as analysts on live fire while they get their degrees. I'm in the process of signing up a couple more small cities in Washington right now. And we think about Q2 of next year, given everything that the federal government is going to have to go through between now and then. DHL is going to likely help us move into expansion into Colorado and possibly another state, again, probably around Q2. So it's going to get bigger. We're going to make a lot of analysts.
That's really cool. I hope they all get hired here in Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
I hope other states take this up too, because it seems to be working, and to see something like this really taking off, and in this economy to see people getting hired,
Mm-hmm.
it's a really good thing.
Yeah.
That said, let's
Yes.
talk about the news. There was a lot going on this week, and before you get into it, one of the things that we actually did this week was a tabletop exercise, a
Mm-hmm.
virtual tabletop exercise. I'm going to put the link in the chat on LinkedIn here. We expected, I don't know, 40 or 50 people. We had more than 300 people sign up. We had
Wow.
180 people show up live.
Wow.
It was really, really cool. And one of the things that actually came up as part of this is an anti-ransomware package of services that we're putting together. And so we're asking for opinions on that. So I'm going to put in the chat both my email address and the link to see the virtual tabletop, if people want to. But I'd love people's feedback on it personally. But now I want to hear the news.
Yeah, this week was, what's the best description? Astonishing, as my favorite professor used to say. So, where do you start? Chris Krebs, the guy that ran CISA, is suing Newsmax and that nutty lawyer that called for his execution. GE left default passwords in medical technologies that facilitates the theft of patient data from MRI and X-ray machines. And apparently it's going to be kind of hard to fix. Millions of IoT and smart devices have vulnerabilities in the open source TCP stack they use. So they're vulnerable now. Microsoft, this is weird. Microsoft patched a problem with Teams that would allow code execution just by reading a message. Apple and Cloudflare are working on technology that would basically give everyone using the internet the privacy of Tor. None of that is even the big news. Big news is FireEye got whacked, likely by a nation state, Russia, and they have confirmed that their technical testing tools, right, the red team tools that they use to test customer networks, they got lifted. So just that one event has got a lot to unpack. So yeah, crazy week.
Yeah, it's like they were gearing up right before Hanukkah. No, just kidding. By the way, I did see one funny thing this morning that said you wanted 1 week of post-election news and you got 8. Happy Hanukkah. Yeah. So back to FireEye for a second. I understand they didn't get any customer data, according to FireEye.
Right.
What customer data would they have held? And you mentioned Russia.
Well, I coughed Russia. So, they may have had some customer data in terms of, obviously they have customer contact data, but, customer event configuration data from the products that are deployed on customer side. That's what I'm thinking they may have had in terms of customer data. It's not really a big deal. But the bigger question is number 2, who done it, right? And yeah, I suspect Russian actors and likely the GRU. So again, the story for publication is they were after customer data, which is likely true, but I think that's the secondary objective. FireEye has been instrumental with attribution of actors in these big incidents and probably helping to get to actual individuals, right? Names. And so those individuals go on the if you travel, you get arrested list. And I think this is partially, at least, in retaliation for that.
Well, I almost pulled a mic and spoke on mute there. So wait, I bet you're right. But what do you think the fallout is at this point?
Well, FireEye, the company, is acting really responsibly here, and I think that's going to reflect well on them. They're releasing countermeasures to protect from and detect the use of the tools that were lifted. So, they're likely going to be in the hands of organized crime soon. And so FireEye is really pulling out all the stops to make sure that we can tell if their tools are being used against us.
Yeah, I mean, we've certainly called out other companies that have, when they had issues, when they got breached, did not respond well.
Yeah.
It's awesome that it seems like they are responding well at this point. By
Mm-hmm.
the way, I thought this was nation state. Organized crime, where does that fit in?
Well, there's really not a bright line between state-supported and criminal actors in Russia. A strategic objective of the state is to harass the U.S. We all know this, and we don't seem to be able to do anything about cybercrime. So they'll provide the tools and look the other way while their criminals move more U.S. money into Russia. It's just going to continue. And now they're going to have improved tools to use.
You seem irritated about that.
Of course, I'm irritated about that. I think we all need to be irritated about that. I think we need to start using economic sanctions and other market-based tools. The upcoming passage of the NDAA is going to create the national cyber director position in the White House. So with somebody there to listen, I think it's time to lobby for things like economic sanctions as a tool against cybercrime, which is something we haven't really tried to its full extent.
Got it. So who else got hacked this week?
Let's see. There was some COVID hacking this week. We learned that companies in the vaccine cold chain have been targeted. So those are companies that are focused on the delivery of the product, the vaccine, and the fact it has to be kept cold. Like right down to the company that makes the solar panels that will provide energy for cooling while being transported. So, and it's for two reasons, I think. Number one, the vaccine has the potential to have a big effect on the global economy. So the details of delivery schedules and destinations are of strategic value to countries. And then second, it's also in their strategic interest to get your people vaccinated first and get that jump ahead of the competition while everybody else is sick, right? So knowing where to hit the supply chain to disrupt vaccine delivery, may be an objective as well. So, this was weird. And then the other one, some vaccine research was targeted. The EU agency in charge of vaccine approval, I can't remember the name of the agency, was compromised, and documents relating to the regulatory submissions for the Pfizer and one other, I think, vaccine created in the UK were stolen. So vaccine details have become a pretty valuable commodity. And I hear the Russian vaccine isn't going so well. They're telling people they can't drink alcohol for 2 months in Russia after receiving the vaccine, and Putin won't take it himself. So they may be shopping for alternatives.
As somebody who has Russian heritage, I can say that telling me not to drink vodka for a month would be
2 months.
I know.
Wow.
I said a month. Thanks for falling into my trap.
You're welcome.
Hey, did I hear something bad happened in the manufacturing sector this week?
Manufacturing. Oh, yeah. Foxconn, the largest manufacturer of electronic components. I think it's their operation in Mexico that's been halted all the way, and they're being extorted for $34 million. My personal opinion is the manufacturing sector hasn't really had enough airtime in terms of how much they're targeted, and they're getting whacked pretty hard.
That's a lot. Nation state actions. I guess some of it embedded in everything else now.
Mm-hmm.
Vaccine hacking, FireEye. What's happening with the U.S. government?
Some interesting things, largely I think related to the transition of the administration. Congress is still not funding grants to secure state and local agencies, which is frankly reprehensible. Maybe if Mitch McConnell's water and waste utility was knocked over and his toilet wouldn't flush for 3 days, we could change some behavior there, but I'm not going to hold my breath. TISA, the Infrastructure and Cyber Agency, is warning about Iran's offensive cyber capabilities. But I think that announcement was purely for readers in Iran. So they know we're watching and that we can ID individual actors. Well, FireEye can. Let's hope they can continue to do that. I commented on this. There was a piece in Cyber Scoop this week. What else? Again, the NDAA, the National Defense Authorization Act, is about to pass. And interestingly, there are provisions to put some muscle into this CMMC effort to get government contractors up to some level of security maturity before they can do business with the federal government. CMMC, the Cyber Maturity Model Certification, has been met with, let's just say, skepticism from the businesses that are going to have to pay for all of this, especially small and medium business. So Congress is about to start some hearings. You better watch out. So that's happening. The federal government has been logging website visitors back in 2019 using the Patriot Act as the authority, right? So, it's okay if Facebook does the creepy tracking because they're going to sell us the products we want based on that. But when the government does it, that isn't so good. CISA is also about to get subpoena power to get ISPs to tell them the owners of vulnerable devices on the internet, right? So, you can scan the internet, you can find stuff that looks like it's bad, but you don't know who owns it. And so CISA is now about to be able to get the identity of the owners. That's way broad and could include, you being notified by Homeland Security about your internet router. Is that a good thing? That a bad thing? It's probably a good thing, but, again, that is a slippery slope. And the DEA is no longer buying commercial location data that's based on smartphone app usage, right? Customs Border Patrol still does. So there's a bunch of stuff that happened in the federal government this week. Some of it's creepy, some of it's not so good. Maybe some of it is good.
You left me with an uneasy feeling. I think you meant to do that.
Possibly.
So surveillance of Americans using technology it sounds like something we're just going to have to live with.
Well, we'll see. Again, we may be able to have a listener in the federal government soon, and the InfoSec community has never really flexed its lobbying muscles, and that may be changing. There may be more reasonable actors to deal with in government soon. So, we'll see. InfoSec people have never put together a PAC, and maybe it's time.
We're about out of time.
We are out of time.
What do you want to leave people with?
Why, a gift recommendation, of course. A company is selling Faraday cages for your Wi-Fi router that block 5G signal. Now, this is either the best example or grifting or trolling. I don't know which. But if you're a believer in the baseless conspiracy theories about 5G, this may be the gift for you. But it's a Faraday cage for your Wi-Fi router. It blocks signal. It blocks your own Wi-Fi signal. So for the gullible, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah, which, by the way, starts at sundown, just so you know exactly when it starts.
Boy, thanks for telling me. I wouldn't have known without you.
Yeah.
I'm glad that
I'm here for you, man.
I'm glad that Hamilton told Milstein when Hanukkah begins. That's good.
What are you going to tell me how to make haggis next?
That was your funniest joke of the week. Just hold on to that one.
Not even close.
Hey, so do you remember? So we're the platform we're using to do this. Do you remember? There's a button where I can show comments. So Coover, friend of ours, talked about that tabletop.
Yep.
Look, there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Tabletop. He made my day.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Coover.
Yeah, that's fucking awesome. All right. Yeah. Well, happy Hanukkah, everybody. If you want that latke recipe, feel free to ask me for it. My email address is in there. I haven't made it yet, so I don't know if it's good, but maybe it's less greasy.
It's potatoes. How can it not be good?
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have an awesome week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, everybody.